It is my pleasure to introduce you to Boyan Djefersky today. And Boyan is a facilitator with Juice. And I am so tickled, Boyan, to have you on the show. So welcome.
Thank you, Brady. Very happy to be joining.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you the same question that I ask every single person on this podcast, and that is, what juices you? What is it that when you open your eyes, wake up in the morning, it fuels you? You don't have to fuel it. And it is your very, very unique source of energy in this world. So you could talk about anything that may have happened in your life that predisposes you to that being your juice. And we can go anywhere we want. But I really want to know, what juices you, Boyan?
Thanks for the question, Brady. And I'd say social connections. From a young age, I was raised as a single child. And so whenever I had a phone call from a friend, my parents could testify, my grandparents at the time when they were visiting from Bulgaria can testify, Boya would run, head, his heels to his head, and he would sprint to see his friends. That's
Yeah.
one thing. And when they would come over, I would be a completely different person. I would be overly energetic, happy, enthusiastic. And so, from a very young age, as a single child, being around people energized me.
Almost like a toggle, like a switch. So I see you being different in terms of your energy, in terms of how you would be lit up in that situation. What else changed about you, Boyan, when you were with your friends? Did you become more eloquent? Did you become more creative? Like, what did that do for you when that switch was turned on?
Right. It's a combination of being seen, being the attention, not
Yeah.
necessarily the center of attention, but being
Yep.
seen and
Yeah.
having that privilege of having someone with whom we can connect and feel heard and valued. Not that we were using this language back when we were kids, but I
Yeah.
recall those friendships. I valued mostly one-on-one interactions with people. And so when I
Okay.
had this one-on-one connection, I
Yeah.
felt the most energized.
So if you had three or four friends over, you were a different Boyan than if there was one or maybe two.
It was interesting. It depended of the environments.
Yeah.
I grew up in different types of environments. Some of them, when I grew up in high school, were a little bit, how can I say, not necessarily positive in the sense
Yeah.
of boys being boys, connecting, and a little bit on the picking on each other's weaknesses. And so I was actually the butt of all jokes, if you can imagine.
I
Because I'm
see.
a very sensitive guy, I'm empathetic, and I don't like confrontation. So I would sit back and just take it in until it really
Yeah.
rubbed off on me and it really impacted my self confidence.
Yeah. So, Boyan, what I'm hearing is, if you're in a group of people today, and I'm going to put words in your mouth, you tell me if it's right or not, but social banter or jocks talking about, sports or making jokes about stuff, that's conversation that's this deep but this wide. But I could see you going into conversations that are only, very, very deep, but not so wide.
Mm.
And you be that person where somebody might walk away at the end of an evening going, I had an amazing conversation with this guy. Is that the way it goes for you?
I appreciate you reflecting it back this way. It is true. People I meet in the streets from the very first instance are opening up in such a deep way.
Yeah.
And and my mom being next to me is like, oh my god, what happens, right? What creates
Yeah.
that? Well, because I
Yeah.
know how I feel in circles when I am not given attention, when I'm not valued, when I'm ridiculized, ridiculed. And
Yeah.
it's something that I know for a fact that I do not want to do with others. And I recall actually having conversations with the most odd kids in elementary school, Why? I don't know.
Mhm.
I connected. I felt empathy. I wanted to be there for them and supporting them.
So, when we talked about conversations that are, not so wide but deep, and when you were in school, it sounds to me like there was a dark gift in one sense, and that is ridiculed. And people can come out of that in two different ways, or lots of different ways. They can come out of that as a person who starts to ridicule others, and I'm just going to dish it right back. Or they can be a person, and that ridicule sensitizes them to be incredibly empathetic, compassionate to others, and even somebody who will really be the person who defends the underdog, right? And so it sounds to me like for you, it went to a place that created an incredible those traits really work well as a facilitator. Could you just talk about your experience there in, I think, especially high school, and how it kind of metabolized for you into something that is your unique gift in the world now?
I appreciate you reflecting it back this way. It's exactly the truth. You can either come out of it and be a bully and and
Yeah.
and do unto others what you received,
Yeah.
but as someone who felt it firsthand and didn't want to impose that onto others, now I do feel compelled to help others, even in situation where they are not necessarily bullied, but in the professional world today, as a facilitator, when someone is challenged with something, I feel called to help. I feel called to listen with
Yeah.
empathy, to find ways to help them move through those challenges and come out more confident. And confidence is really a key word for me. It really spurs the work that I do. If I can get the person to feel more confident about having this courageous conversation, more confident about presenting in front of their stakeholders, building that confidence really drives me in the work that I do.
Yeah. So, as you're when you're in a place where your energy is dipping, perhaps you've had a really tough session. There could be things happening in your personal life. You are reaching for a fuel source, and it is you're honing in on a very powerful social. The quality of the connection is the thing that you are looking for. I love that. Anything else that you look at as perhaps a secondary fuel source that you'd say, yeah, so quality connection, social connection, friendship, all of that, and then the other thing that juices me might be what would that be?
I would say because the imposter syndrome was so real for me in my early career,
Yeah,
knowing that someone else's values my contribution
yeah,
and provides positive feedback, whether it's a participant, whether it's a colleague, I just am I'm baiting in it. The more the merrier. And I know
hmm,
that to be true also for others. Maybe if we look at the five love languages, if you're familiar with the book, one of
yeah,
them is verbal recognition and
sure,
verbal appreciation. And that's one of them that I really value and really take to heart when it's done often. And so that's something that I appreciate whenever I do even the smallest thing. And I try to do the same for others whenever I see others making an effort to reach out, appreciating them connecting, making an effort to help me in a situation, being appreciative towards them is something else that I would add to it.
let me ask you this question. That can be a tricky one to ask for, and I'd like to know a little bit about how you do that. My sense is that you would probably crawl over crushed glass for miles in order to contribute to other people. And all you really need, all you're really looking for is just a little bit of appreciation, just a little bit of a sense of gratitude. But if you feel taken for granted, if it feels like people are abusing that, how is it in relationships? And I bet you found a way. How do you ask for that sense of appreciation, that sense of recognition, that sense of affirmation and validation that's so important, but it can be difficult. It's like you can't walk up to somebody and say, I need more appreciation. So how do you get that need met in a skillful way, Boyan?
I think it's by modeling it ourselves. And so when we are appreciative of others, we're not condemning, criticizing others, we're actually appreciating them. They can emulate because they see it in us. So I cannot ask for something that I don't do. So that's one thing. And I know, for example, that other people may not have this as their love language. Their love
Yeah,
language is giving gifts,
sure.
for example. But when in connection with others, when I want to be appreciating others, I know it will come back to me because of the fact that we are said to be the average of 5 people closest to us. So the way that we behave with one another is going to come back our way. I do believe that. So hence coming back to the initial conversation about the circles. And interestingly, I saw my friends mature with the time, right? Those friends who were very picky on commenting and criticizing, now with
Yeah,
time they matured. And why? Most often is because they're in a partnership. And in their partnership, romantic partnership, if they're criticizing, condemning, good luck keeping that relationship. And so I believe that they grew to learn that appreciation is the way to go and not criticizing. And so in this group of friends, I'm really enjoying it again, and I'm happy to say that I left behind the things that were in the past. I forgave, and today I'm enjoying those friendships, and they're renewed in a very nice way.
beautiful. There's a question I've been asking people for years, and I've asked thousands of people this question. It is, are you smarter around some people than you are around others? And boy, and you can imagine what the response has been, but like over 90% of the people say, yeah, like, why is that? Why are there some people? What I'm hearing is that when you are dealing with a person where there's a deep social connection and where there's just a sense of appreciation, where they see you and when they call out the value and the potential that you bring, I'm guessing that you become even more eloquent, even more brilliant, more connections are firing. Is that true of you?
100%. I have a silly example. We're playing video games. One of them is FIFA soccer. So we're together and we're playing in teams, 2 against 2.
Yep.
And I'm playing with my partner, with my friend. And as soon as the person starts, why didn't you make the pass? Oh, you should have done this. As soon as the dialogue is catered around the criticism,
Yeah.
I start losing interest in the game. I start not caring. As opposed to when we're playing and the person doesn't say the bad things but encourages the good, I
Yeah.
start to be lighten up, and I want to contribute. I'm enjoying myself. So it's a silly example, but we can apply it in any other context.
Yes. Yes. So true. I'm going to turn to the second part of this podcast, Boyan. And first of all, I'm just luxuriating in the sense of you deeply, deeply connecting. I'll bet you're that person who's on the airplane and the other person walks away after 3 hours going, I just had the most amazing conversation in my life with somebody. So that's beautiful. The second thing then is, what is your juice for the world? And when people experience you, what is the magic that they experience? What is the impact? What are the outcomes that people walk away going, you know what? I've never had it quite like that. Because you just bring your own special juice. What is your juice for the world?
I would say is my ability to listen deeply to others.
Yeah.
In lots of leadership development courses that I facilitated, the one thing that came out the most was, wow, you really do listen deeply.
Mm-hmm.
And I am called to do that more with my peers, with my colleagues. And so we're talking about coaching, yes, talking less, asking more questions, but it's all fundamentally anchored in silence and presence and listening. So I would say that's something that I'm intentionally applying whenever I am in communication with others, as soon as I'm with someone, to give them the space to shine, to show up as themselves, and to hear the need. If the need is, oh, I just want to connect, and I don't see any need from them to share more, maybe I'll take more place. But I do recognize that as a strength. Dialing down whenever the other person needs the space, and maybe dialing up if the person has availability for me in communicating.
Boy, and a lot of people want to be a better listener, and the monkey mind, the impetus to take over the conversation, and sometimes from a very, very beautiful and noble spot, which is I hear something in your dialogue and it triggers an autobiographical response, and before I know it, I say, "Oh, that reminds me of something," and I kind of take over. How is it that you are able to hold space for people? I'm sure you're just as busy as any one of us. But could you give people a few keys for if you want to really up your game as a listener and hold space for people in a meaningful way? Here are a few things that I've learned. What would you say?
Well, Brady, you put it very nicely in your book, and how we have to lean into the other person's world. And when they come to us, rather than being busy thinking about what's going on in my world and trying to give them your view of the world, just being focused towards them
Yeah.
and really trying to understand what's their worldview, where are they coming from, and having that curiosity, because anything that is said is a gift, especially when we're building the relationship, we're building trust. Person is giving so much information to us when in communication. I told you a lot in that conversation, and you can see that these are very important things to me. Confidence building, connection. And so I'm giving information that you can work with and build on, and help me see that really this is something that matters most for me. And we can do the same for others by really listening and being in their worldview and trying to understand it as much as possible. So keeping that in mind, curiosity, asking questions. In terms of, you said this, what do you mean by that? Deepening your understanding of the words and the inferences,
Mhm.
not assuming, not using our language, because we have our world map, our experiences, but it's not the same. Everyone is unique. That's the uniqueness actually in people. It's the world map. It's how we see the world.
Yeah. There are some people that I've heard say that interest, empathy, curiosity, you're either born with it or not. And my sense is that you would say, no, no, these are things you can acquire more skill at, or you can develop, you can learn. What would you say about that?
I agree. I certainly agree that can be learned. I was exposed to a lot of authentic relating practices, which involves sharing impact on what people say. When you said that, I felt that. So the
Hmm.
person now receives words shared to another person and sees impact. And when you said that, I felt that. And you're like, in a authentic relating practice, and these are things that we can do. We can go and look them up. Authentic relating practices, sit in circles and really experience what it is to witness one another. And I find this work fascinating because the core purpose of this authentic relating practice is an effort of connection. So
Yeah,
whenever we're intervening in the conversation, we have to ask ourselves, are we doing this in an effort of connection or not? And if
right.
we are in a position where we're starting to coach, we need to say it. And I got burned many times because I have a coaching background, and I want to help the other person, and I'm coming in as a coach, but that's not necessarily what the other person needs at this time. So
Right.
we need to ask permission to give that person some maybe pointed coaching questions to lead them somewhere, but only if they agree to it, we can do it. It's a very interesting dynamic in those contexts.
So true. Boy, and we're sitting in a world where we have fragmentation. We have divides. We've got divides around age, around sex, around religion, around politics, around language, and we we actually have some very significant sociological issues around division and how we other the other person, right? And I'm hearing a lot in what you're saying that, of course, organizationally, what you bring is going to be incredibly helpful for people to hold space and listen and be curious, and deeply connect with each other. But I'm also hearing that there may be a gift for the world. And so my last question is, what is your wish for our world, Boyan?
Well, if we're looking at the divide as being one of the challenges, right? We're coming from different worldviews. And I'd say my wish for the world is to embrace differences with curiosity and love. And if it triggers us, then maybe go in deeper and understand, why is that triggering? Where is that coming from? Where in my
Yeah,
worldview that's not okay? And if it's not okay, then bring it up, because in an effort of bringing it up to the other person, we're creating a connection. When you do this in our religion, we don't do it. How come you do it this way? And we're just creating bonds, and now we understand one another. We understand why they do certain things that we don't. And I say they and we because we're talking about a divide, right? Different opinion, different
yeah,
perspectives.
yeah. I'm hearing in all of this that somebody could walk away going, okay, Boyan is all about listening and just taking it in and being empathetic, but he wouldn't ever challenge, or he wouldn't ever speak up, or he wouldn't be straightforward, or he wouldn't declare the truth. But what you just said is that no, there is a place for building the challenge function, if you will, and really straight talk. How is it that you manage those two things when you have such a huge impetus towards connection and empathy and, defending the underdog? How did you cultivate this challenge function in your life?
I think in relationships, if we're not setting boundaries in terms of what we need and being able to communicate our needs, it's hard to build anything, because we're going to compromise either too much, and
Yeah,
someone is going to do too much work. And at Juice we talk about this, right? Parenting, partnering, and that comes a long way in those relationships. We need to be able to set our expectations, hold people accountable, and express them openly so that we can build something together. Because in the context of authentic relating, we're not building anything, we're just connecting. It's great, we're connecting. But in business, we need to set expectations, because we are producing something, we're creating value in the marketplace. So it's a different, we can use the connection piece from authentic relating, but in
yeah,
business we do need to set those uh, hard conversation where there are discrepancies, expectations, and communicating the needs both ways.
yeah. So much good stuff here, Boyan. Thank you. You've shared a real gift with us and given people not just the flavor of a life that is juiced by social connection, and feeling truly valued and appreciated, but what that can bring to other people. The picture that I have of you is that of a pool that is very, very still. So the surface is like glass. And if I was sitting with you, I think that I would be able to see my own reflection, because it's not a troubled water. Like it's not a wavy surface. It's a very still, beautiful, glassy surface. And that's the picture. I see you as an oasis, where other people can actually get a very clear sense of their reflection as they are listened to by you. So I think that's a real gift. I'm not sure if that image rings for you or not, but it's the way I see you.
I appreciate the image. It's very serene.
Beautiful. Boyan Djefersky, thank you so much for the time today. And I hope that all of our audience are just appreciating the very big gift that you are to the world. All the best.
Thanks, Brady. Appreciate you.